Okay, Coven ready? Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Witches Movie Coven. I am Patty Negri, one of your hosts for this journey into the world of witch movies. I brought with me the best of the best. We have with us Heather Greene, author of the ultimate book on witches in movies. Right there, we have Jason Mankey, also movie expert and fellow witch, and Courtney Buckley, right there in Salem, fellow witch and movie expert herself. So this week, we're going to talk about seemingly controversial, which I didn't know, the Witches of Eastwick. But before we go there, I'm going to hand this over to Heather for a moment because there's somebody we want to talk about.
Yeah, unfortunately, we lost a wonderful actress and comedian. I think it was yesterday, actually, Angela Lansbury. And the reason we're wanting to pay a little tribute to her, a little nod to her, is because she played one of the most beloved Hollywood witches in Hollywood history, really. Eglantine from Bedknobs and Broomsticks. That's one of the most popular witchcraft movies that we've seen on the silver screen. And she was the star, she was the witch, and people just love the Bedknobs and Broomsticks. It was a 1971 movie by Disney. But Angela, just to give a little bit of a story behind her, she was born in 1925 in London. Her father died early and her mom moved them to New York, in, I believe it was 1935. No, 1940, excuse me, and to pursue acting, to help her pursue, and her mom actually wanted to be an actress as well. She did her first paid job was in Montreal, actually, in 1941. They eventually moved to LA, and the rest is history, as they say. What's interesting is that her first movie wasn't until the 1960s, and then she got into Broadway and was doing Broadway. She won 5 Tony Awards. She got a special Lifetime Award. I think most of you will know her if you know her. Sweeney Todd was her most famous role that way. She also was a star of Murder, She Wrote. She got some Golden Globe Awards for that. Unfortunately, she never, although nominated, never won an Emmy. She also never won an Academy Award, although she also got a special award from the Academy as well. For me, I loved Bedknobs and Broomsticks as a kid. When I think of her, because I am a longtime Disney fan and did spend a couple years studying Disney in film school, I think of her as Mrs. Potts as well as the enchanted teapot. So that's Angela Lansbury to me. I never watched Murder, She Wrote. I don't know, you guys. She was such a well-loved and versatile actress outside of her witchy enchanted roles. Do you guys remember her from something special?
I just remember her. I mean, I just remember she was always on TV, even when the Murder, She Wrote years, all that, from when I was home with my parents to when I was out on my own to everything else. It was Angela Lansbury was on TV. Mm-hmm. 24 hours a day, it seemed like.
The Murder, She Wrote. Yeah.
And I think she still is. Yeah.
Yeah.
So loved it.
When I think of her, I just think of Off to the Cupboard with You Now, Chip. It's past your bedtime, which is in Beauty and the Beast, but it's on the soundtrack, too. It's like at the end of her singing the Beauty and the Beast theme song. So that's really stuck with me. And my grandparents watched Murder, She Wrote, so I would catch that periodically. And it was a charming little show, especially when another old-timer like Dick Van Dyke would stop by or something like that. It was really fun. And damn the Emmys. She was nominated 11 times for an Emmy Award for Murder, She Wrote. And because she got that special actress award, it cost her an EGOT. She could have been an EGOTer.
Mm-hmm. Really? Wow. That's amazing to me. Sorry, I'm speechless for a minute. 11 times and didn't win. That's
never won. Or an Academy Award.
The Susan Lucci of like drama actresses on television, right? Like Susan Lucci was the soap operas, and then Angela Lansbury was the drama actress who never got her due on. I mean, it's Angela Lansbury though. Everyone knows who she is.
I grew up with her as Mrs. Potts too. And one of my best friends watches Murder, She Wrote, I think every night. Like that's her go to sleep show. And so when she stays at my house, she puts it on. I've never watched it, but I think I'll have to start in honor of her.
What was interesting to me is just being, a film historian and all, is that I didn't know she had been in, because she was supporting roles, and one of the ones that is a movie, a classic that everybody has to watch, is The Manchurian Candidate. She was in that. She was a mother, and I was like, oh, I forgot. And she had so many roles like that, but I think some of her biggest roles were Broadway, and I think she's probably best known for Murder, She Wrote, and of course in the witchcraft community, Bedknobs and Broomsticks. Yeah. So I think this is a nice tribute to her, and thank you for what is remembered lives, as we say.
Yeah. Bye, Angela.
Bye, Angela.
We'll still see you on TV forever and ever and ever.
Yep.
Once you go into syndication, I guess. I don't know.
That's true immortality.
Mm-hmm. True.
Thank you guys, everybody checking in, everybody who's saying hi. We are so glad you are all here. We are so glad you all here. Now, again, before we move right into Witches of Eastwick, last week we talked about Hocus Pocus. Some of us loved it. Some of us didn't love it. There was lots in the middle. But since then, there's been a whole lot of controversy about it. Anybody want to start?
I think it's hilarious. I think it's the news story. I think I touched on it last week, or like people posting, but like the news story of that woman who thinks that, the witchcraft is going to come through the screen and corrupt their children, and she's out there throwing them out. Like, it's so ridiculous to me. And I think I've been laughing for a week straight about people. They're doing that thing on Facebook, marking themselves safe from, Bette Midler coming through the screen and corrupting their kids. Like it's or like the witchcraft getting to them. It's so nonsensical to me. It's funny.
I don't get it, because we could watch the insanely violent superhero movies for kids, people destroying each other and killing each other, even if they're trying to get creative about how they show it or not show it. It is still ridiculous human violence, scarier than a group of witches by far. How come those don't get, I'm safe from, Superman or from Marvel?
I think part of it too, though, is because of social media, we're more sensitive to it to a degree. Like, we notice when people are complaining about something, and we can complain in real time. I do think I have some friends in the witchcraft community who like to share people complaining about us, because it is funny. And it also, some people get really worried about it, but the suburban Texas mom who hates Hocus Pocus too isn't really going to stop witches around the world or anything.
No, it's just sad state of humanity in some senses. It's not going to stop anything, but it's just sad, that limited of thinking.
I mean, it's not new too either. I mean, I remember as a kid loving the Dungeons and Dragons TV show. It was a cartoon on Saturday mornings, and it was right in the middle of the 80s satanic panic, and people thought it would lead children to witchcraft and the occult, and it got canceled, even though it was the highest rated kids show on TV. And I think at this point, though, at least we don't have to worry about that kind of thing happening. Disney is not going to yank Hocus Pocus 2 off of Disney Plus anytime soon.
I don't think so. And by the way, if you're missing Heather, it's technical difficulties. She's here. She's here somewhere. There she is. Magic.
My camera was very angry at this discussion and just decided it was going to go blank. So, yes, all of what they said.
Also, as someone who practices on both sides of the spectrum here, both light and dark, nothing makes me want to whip out my hexing materials than someone acting like that. Like, you want to pretend like this is going to do it? Like, let's find out what does it. And I would never, but it makes me think about it.
What made me laugh about this whole thing is that I think I mentioned last week I wrote an article on Hocus Pocus and the differences between number 1 and number 2, and I mentioned how the differences were significant because they show that witchcraft as a religion and a spiritual path and a way of life have become more accepted and more integrated. And that was actually picked up on by a number of outlets that are in the how do I say this? They're in the realm of what we're talking about. They're the ones that do, by journalists and writers who do believe that Hocus Pocus is a negative influence, and they used my article as a point of reference to prove their point, which I found kind of funny. The other perspective, I'm like, well, I what I said is true. If you want to look at it the other way, I'm sorry. But yeah, I thought that was quite interesting. But they're like, I think someone here said while I was fixing my camera, it's a small number of people. Hocus Pocus is generally considered comedy and fiction, and you just go, it's always going to be like that. It's always going to be complainers.
Yeah. And I'm currently raising an almost 13-year-old who we're just delving into the realm of like scary movies and like higher rated movies right now. And I think it's so important as a parent, it's my responsibility to teach him that these are just movies and that doesn't mean that they're real. We're not watching documentaries, we're watching made up fictional stories. Yes. Even if it's based on a true story, it doesn't matter. But like we talk about that constantly as we watch these things because that's my responsibility as a parent. It's not the responsibility of filmmakers or companies showing or television stations showing. It's my responsibility to teach him that. So I don't understand how anyone can put that blame on anybody else.
And I'm going to point out one other thing, because I always have to bring this back to history because it's, that's what I do, is that there was a point in time, and most people don't realize this, that Hollywood did self-censor itself. And things like this would not have been able to be on the screen. And it was run, the self-censorship system, the production code, was established by a Catholic priest, was written by a Catholic priest, a Jesuit priest, and Laban, and it was definitely had a codified Christianity to it. And for that period of time, there were very few witches on the screen. The question is, do we want to go back to that? Because it changed significantly when the code dropped, and that was a censorship system, very much so. So there's always that to look back on and say, the 1950s, 1940s, 1930s movies were censored, severely censored. And like you said, it's, do we want that? Do we want them doing it? Or do we want us as parents and as individuals choosing what we watch and discerning that? So it's a good conversation to have.
Yes. Well, that's the thing. Like what you're just saying right now is people like this who are this outspoken about it, that they're going to go on news media outlets and talk about this. I feel like that is what they want, until it comes down to the one thing that they want to watch, and then it's now you're censoring me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say that the media is probably to blame too, because people love those kind of outrage articles. Whether you're on one side or the other, you're going to click on the article. The Texas newspaper or TV station that ran the initial report about the woman who's been all over Facebook about hating Hocus Pocus 2, I clicked on it because I'm weak. I saw it. I wanted to read it. Right? It's great for their traffic. I mean, they know exactly what they're doing, right? Outrage always sells.
Absolutely.
We're talking about it right now.
Yeah, exactly. Here we are.
And there's probably like 5 people who are that outraged, and that, I mean, it's a very small. The haters are always small, but they're very loud. So,
yeah. But it is just scary because in so many other areas, not counting witch movies, we have gone backwards a few decades in rights and censorship type things. So it's like, that's all.
We need to pay attention. You're right, Patty. We do have to pay attention.
Yeah, we're not going to get political on the show, but no, we have to be allowed our movies.
Yeah. So talking about going back a few decades,
right?
I think
Tonight's
we're
movie
going to
goes
do
back.
that tonight.
Yeah.
Let's do that. So I'm gonna talk about the Dirty Laundry song. Okay. I dab at that. Yes, so let's move on off Angela, off off the Hocus Pocus witches, onto the Jack Nicholson's crew of Cher and Susan Sarandon and Michelle Pfeiffer. All my favorite people, some of my favorite people. So I personally love the movie. I loved it when it first came out. I loved it when I watched it the night before last. And I don't even know what all I loved about it, but Courtney, you just saw it for the very first time, right? Be kind. No, you don't have to be kind.
I'm not going to be kind. I just finished watching it for the very allegedly. Here's the thing. Allegedly, I talked to my mother about this today, and she said I was born. When did this come out? 87. So I was 1 when this came out, and she said allegedly that she showed it to me when I was a kid. I doubt. Now having seen it, I doubt that was the thing. So yeah, tonight was my first time watching it, and I wrote down 2 things. I wrote down that it felt like a porn movie that I watched for the plot, but they took all the good stuff out. And then I wrote down, that it felt like, oh my God, I just lost my train of thought and I can't find where I wrote down. Anyway, I'll pick it back up, but it did not impress me. I love all of the people that are in it separately, away from. Here's what it was. Is that I've been in many not great relationships in my life, and this felt like I was rewatching all of them, like played out on the screen. So it was a lot, and I get what they were doing. I got the whole point. I understood it, but to me, it was uncomfortable, and I didn't like it at all. I didn't like any of it. I felt like I get that they manifested Jack Nicholson into existence, but at the same time, they played to me as very powerless and succumbing to him, and I don't like that. At the end, I liked when they, kind of came together and to battle him, but still at the same time, it didn't feel like that same, coming into themselves moment that we had in other movies. Like we talked about The Witch or Hocus Pocus, like that was missing for me, even though I feel like it was supposed to be that. I don't know. I was not impressed at all. 2 thumbs down.
2 thumbs down.
2 wands down.
Wands. Oh yeah, we have to have wands up, wands down.
Wands down, wands up.
The pendulum says no.
See, why I think it's different is, yes, they conjured him, and yes, it was not a healthy relationship, but it was like reality is that, and people do get in these weird, and they create themselves unhealthy relationships, and sometimes we're in the moments of liking those unhealthy relationships or aspects thereof. So I like that they showed it, and again, I still think then they came out strong, and they made the doll, and to me, the girls won. And showed more humanity, because I don't know a single person who hasn't, well, probably I do, but not really much of a single person who hasn't created their own weird situation at times and lived into it, whether they take responsibility for it or not.
Well, I also think that one of the things about the movie is the women begin the movie in like kind of in vulnerable, broken states, right? I mean, the husband left, one's a widow, it's so they get something from him that helps them along their way. Watching the Susan Sarandon character, it's almost like 2 different characters. She's very nerdy, she's very inward, she's very, very withdrawn, and then she's with Jack Nicholson for, an hour or 2 or whatever it was, and she's like an entirely different reborn woman. And the acting was great with that. But also, they got something out of it. It wasn't all bad. Not healthy relationship, but it wasn't all bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't agree. I get what you're saying fully, but for me, and maybe it's like, honestly, I think it would have been different if I had watched it a while back, but maybe it's just because I'm watching it now. to me, it feels like we don't need a man. It's 2022. We don't need a man to do that. Like, we do that ourselves. And this felt very much like we all needed a man to figure out, or like the relationship. We don't need a relationship to do those things. Like, we are powerful, witches, men and women alike. We are powerful ourselves, and we don't need that relationship, however manifested, to show that to us. And it was just, I think because the whole movie felt like that to me, that I just didn't
See,
love.
who doesn't want to like spend one night floating around that mansion, on a food cart, or floating over the pool, or hanging? It's like weird fantasy to me, and even the weird bad parts, so long as they won in the end. I don't know.
I make my own money. Sorry, I was gonna say I make my own money, and I can order all that on Uber Eats and have a great night.
Can you make tennis balls float?
Yes, with fishing wire.
I'm gonna have to interject here. I have a love-hate relationship with this movie. When it came out, I did see it, and I loved it because I loved the imagination of the three characters and the witches. I remember thinking, this is fun, and I actually read the book back then. And I did revisit it for when I wrote my own book about it. And the book was written in 1981 or 1982, I think it was when it was published. And John Updike was really trying, yes, he was a man, as someone pointed out, but he was trying to capture at that point in time a feminist spirit that still was really popular and still was viable at that point. It was very viable, and it was still running through our culture in the early 80s. And so that's what he was capturing. And in the book, the three witches, the three characters, they're witches right from the beginning. They are never not witches. They're doing magic independently of Satan. Okay? And so that's a very big difference. Now, this movie is 1987. This is right in the middle of the Satanic Panic. And so when you put it in the context of that history and what's going on with witch films at the time, this is right at the beginning of the witch craze, the witch film craze, okay? The second one of its kind. And you keep in mind that at this period of time, there was also a backlash against women. There's a great book by Susan Faludi who talks about this and how that happens. There was a backlash against women being going into the workforce. So it was a backlash against what you saw in the 60s and 70s. And you see that in this film. That's what the shift is in the narrative from the book to here. I love the characters. I love the actresses. I love that they're trying, that you could feel the feminist spirit in there somewhere, but it gets tamped down. And it becomes problematic. And so these witches don't intentionally conjure the devil. They have a girls' night out drinking, lamenting about their position, which is very sad. They've been beat up by men. They've been left. I mean, there's situations, they're single moms, they're ignored at work. All these things are happening to them. And so they have a girls' night out, which, so many people have. And all of a sudden they wish for a man, and the devil shows up. So they aren't witches at that point. They become witches because of their involvement with the devils, because they acquiesce to his sexual needs, really. And Courtney, you got to read the section of my book in there about this movie in here. You're going to love it. I actually put it under it's called Sex and Satan, and it's a closer look at Witches of Eastwick, because that goes in line with what your perception was. But I
the order button as we sit here. Sorry.
You just have to read. It's like 3 pages, but you have to. But it really, to me, as much as I love their characters, as much as I love the fact that their hair goes flat to huge, which is so 1980s beautiful. As much as I love Jack Nicholson, his performance in this film is awesome. I mean, I could sit and watch that church scene over and over again where he's talking about women. He is a phenomenal actor. The film just is very anti-woman. It's very anti-woman. And even in the end, they finally find their magic. They find that spot with the cherries. They do, which is awesome. But at the end, they choose to live in his mansion, and he's not really gone, and they have the babies. And so they wind up under his thumb anyway. And so I have a really gut reaction as far as, it's an anti-feminist movie, not anti-feminist. It's an anti-woman movie set in the Satanic Panic, using witchcraft against women, and that's my love-hate relationship, because I loved it at the time. I love the actors. I love the performances.
And don't you have to take that into consideration, the time that it came out?
Oh, absolutely. And it came out during the time when there was backlash against women, so it fits in perfectly.
Yeah, that's what I see. And again, I write a whole different story. They got the mansion instead of their little cottages. They were able to turn him off the dang TV. They got lovely little babies. I rewrite it that it's a very good ending.
Yeah. Well, at what expense? What did they sell? What kind of freedoms have they given up? Because in the end, you think, oh, they're in this mansion, and then he appears on the he appears on the television. I'm like, he's still here.
But they turned him off.
Yeah, did they?
Even if he hadn't have been on the television, though, I mean, at the end of the movie, they're talking about, do you miss him? Do you want him to come back? And, not to think about him when we're all three together. On the television or not, he was still in their heads. A lot of people don't get over bad relationships well, and sometimes bad relationships stick with you.
Yeah.
See, that's what I like, the reality of like real people. I mean, I work with people every day. That's my gig, my sessions and things like that. It was like real to me. Not good, not bad, just real.
But the thing is, I feel like as someone who has done a lot of work dealing with in real life situations like that for myself, and I've done a lot of work to come away from that. Watching it on TV for me was not the escape that a movie is supposed to be. It was, let's just watch more people do the same thing that you've done. And it didn't feel good. Like, even a bad ending, even an ending that I don't like or don't agree with, will still make me feel something. And this just made me feel depressed. Like, they didn't get away. And I wanted them to get away somehow, but they just didn't get away. And I don't know.
You're rooting for them, and I think that watching them evolve from their predicaments that they were left in by men into these positions where they're realizing their talents fully, as artists, as creators. That is the feminist aspect of it. But they had to trade that, and they had to get that. They had to have the inspiration. They went from being left by men and a patriarchal society, their jobs, whatever, to only finding their spirit through another man, through becoming witches in the most classic sense, Christian sense, is selling their souls, essentially, is what they've done, and acquiescing to his desires. Some of those scenes are you wonder if this is what they really would have wanted, but you enjoy watching them go from these battered down women to these alive women, and they're so fun to watch. It's so fun to watch those transformations and those scenes. But again, and that the other thing that bothered me was that weird scene at the end where he's in the window, where he comes back. I'm like, wait a minute, what is going on now?
The monster movie.
The monster part of it was like, I don't buy that part. They could have left that out.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that. And otherwise, I think somebody wrote in here a while back, and Rob threw it up, that maybe it's a generational thing. Maybe it is, because I was certainly here in the 80s, and I was here. I think that maybe we're reading too much into it. But that's just me. I don't know. It was a story of what happened with women and men, and then the fantasy, and then the whatever of the thing. I don't know.
You can't. I will never ever say you could read too much into it. You're talking to a film historian. I will always read everything into it. And speaking of that, I mean, I love the one thing that we were talking about before we came live, and I think it's really cool to bring up, is that one of the things that happened in this movie, and in a lot of movies prior to this, and then in more recent movies as well, it's been going on since day one, thanks to mostly Hawthorne, is who we can attribute this to, is that when Hollywood wants to tell us without telling us that we're going to be watching a witch movie. They set it in a New England town, or, you know, and this was obviously Updike. So, but either way, and they started out what I call as at ground zero in a New England town. Here's a nice New England town. And the beginning scene, I believe, was a high shot of the town and them swooping in and coming down onto this. That few seconds of filmmaking right there tells us you're about to watch a witch movie. And you can see that throughout Hollywood's history. And this is the perfect one. You start at this ground zero in this nice New England town, proper as a stand-in for the U.S. really. And then but they use New England for obvious reasons. It's like nudge, nudge, wink, wink, Salem, witch movie. Here it comes. Get ready. Hollywood loves that trope.
And someone who like works in Ground Zero, aka Salem, I watching this movie for the first time tonight. I saw that opening scene and I immediately picked up my phone and I said, "Where in Massachusetts was this filmed?"
Exactly.
Because immediately that's what I really thought it was going to be set in Salem still, just because of the way that they presented it, knowing that that's not what Salem looks like, but it's that same vibe. Very, and I said this earlier too before we came on, but it gave me that first probably like just minute and a half before anything happened, like it gave me Practical Magic vibes because of the fall foliage and the church scene and like just that same like New England town vibe. And I mean, obviously that went directly out the window, but it's that same thing, that same like small town, little New England coastal, you know, whatever.
There's so many movies that do that, and it is. I mean, I Married a Witch, and all the movies that are based on that story. Weird Woman, and what's the other one in the 40s? I mean, this has been going on forever. That they use that, and it's largely due to Hawthorne's work from the 1800s which survived through Hollywood, and I talk about this in the book. But this is a perfect example of how it cues us.
I was asked what my standing was. I'm in the middle. I don't love it. I don't hate it. There are things I like. There are things I like about the movie, and there are things I don't like about the movie. But I think it's redeemed because of the performances, because Jack Nicholson is so great. My wife comes home at 5 o'clock, and I'm watching the movie, and I'm like, Jack Nicholson is so good.
He
right?
is.
And that makes the film. And the special effects for 1987 really hold up. I mean, I expected, like, giant Jack Nicholson to look much dumber than it did. And the fact that it didn't look as dumb as I thought it was going to be, you know, was a huge surprise. So, yeah, I mean, there are problems with it, but it's also fun. And I can never not like something that Cher is in.
Me neither. All right, so we want you guys who are all charming, and we want you. Somebody gave us ours the thumbs up, the thumbs down, the two people in the middle. So we want to know what all you guys out there. So either say thumbs up, thumbs down, half and half. All you people who are commenting, we could take a vote.
The cherry scene where they do the cherries with the church. I mean, that is probably one of my favorite scenes in that period of time. I love it, and he's brilliant. So yeah, I'll watch it. This is not one of those movies where I go, yeah, I'm not going to watch it again. Courtney has that; she can take the. I'm never going to see it again. I love watching the performances and the hair. I mean, come on, you gotta.
The thing is, like, as much as I have two thumbs down, two big thumbs down, I will not ever
one's
watch it
down,
again.
one's down,
one's down,
one's down, two on sound.
But it doesn't mean that I don't appreciate parts of the movie. I do. Like, I appreciate all the performances. I appreciate all of the actors that were in it. I love the crazy lady. I loved her. I thought she was the best. I like the cherries throwing up. I thought the scene where they, like, who said it? Haley said it with the feathers. I loved that scene. I loved a lot of things about it. But at the end of the day, I will never watch it again because as a whole, I did not like it.
Yeah. And I did like the special effects, like the monster at the weird came out of the wrong movie, but the in-town stuff and the windstorms and all the chair, it's like, I thought that was brilliantly done.
I loved the hair too. I did notice that as it was happening, that their hair, and I think I thought, I didn't write it down, but I thought to write down that their hair just kept growing as the things were going. I loved that too.
The more in touch they were with their internal self and their power and their art, the bigger their hair got. And it was so funny. I'm like, oh my goodness, look at those curls. That is fantastic. That's so 80s.
When the three of them were like hanging out the window when he was going into town, it was like all hair and like very small little faces with hair, and it was hilarious.
And that's a real thing because, you know, everybody had to have a perm, except Jason didn't have to worry about that. But the rest of us did have to worry about having curly perms with lots and lots of rollers. That was a thing.
That was a thing.
I had a buzz cut back then. So completely different.
Okay. Well, but like you missed out.
Big hair like destroys me. Like I see big hair and I instantly turn around. I'm like such a product of the 80s. You know, it's like I mean I'd already liked Michelle Pfeiffer and Susan Sarandon and Cher a lot before this movie, but rewatching it and seeing their hair get bigger and bigger, I like fell even more in love with them because that's really the key to my heart is Aquanet.
And Michelle Pfeiffer plays a witch in what's the movie from 2000s that she was a witch in another trio. The name is escaping me right now for some reason.
Is it M? No,
it starts. It's I don't like it, so my brain is blocking the movie. She was
the Neil Gaiman one.
Yes.
Yeah, Stardust
with an S. Stardust. She was the witch in Stardust. Another trio of witches that she was in there, and that's you know, her claim to fame. I love seeing when actresses play witches in other films and seeing how that works out. A totally different witch movie from a totally different time with a totally different feel.
Yeah.
So.
And somebody just wrote they love the grocery store scene too. See, I think that's why I like it, and the bad parts that show whatever, because you see them thinking, you see them going, is this right? Is this wrong? Is this, I don't know, just too much humanity for me. I like that part of it. Mm-hmm. And that was a great scene. So many good scenes.
Mm-hmm. It's a classic. It's one of the most popular witch films.
But what's the porn part, Courtney? Was it the music? Was it just Jack in the Rose? I didn't get porn.
Honestly, there was a porn movie called Pirates that they took the monkey business scenes out of, and then they put just the plot pieces together and put it in Blockbuster, and it gave me those vibes. Like whenever it was, he was just making out with all of them all the time. And then he walked in and all three of them were in their lingerie in like various positions on the bed. I was just like, okay, like just if I'm gonna have to watch this, at least show the good parts.
Well, there is that opening scene where Jack Nicholson seduces Cher, and it's like the most clumsy, awful seduction I've ever seen, right? And I'm like, I have like a visceral reaction to that scene because it's pretty gross to watch, really, the way he's just laying all over the bed.
Horrible.
There was just so much thrusting for no reason. There was just thrusting, and I didn't need it.
But it was bad thrusting. Like Jason
I know.
said, like, who would want to sleep with this guy?
But that's why I was like, what's happening? He's not even doing it good, and you're making out with him, and I don't get it.
And like Jack Nicholson is a great actor. I've never really thought, wow, Jack Nicholson is this beautiful man who should end up with Cher, Michelle Pfeiffer, and Susan Sarandon, right? So, but he has a charisma after you get through that scene that you see in later places in the film. But at that point, it's like makes no sense to me, and makes me like question every decision I've ever made because that wouldn't have worked for me.
And can we talk about his hair? His hair, real quick.
Oh.
The whole time with like. That's like my hair is growing out. Like that's this. I could do that hairstyle, like with just the ponytail, but like the rest of it's coming out, just like the back ponytail. I can't. It was like
that's a tragedy. It's a tragedy.
The whole time I'm watching, I'm like, imagine running your fingers through that. Like I'm gonna vomit. Oh, gross.
But didn't you know that was his character? That's what he's doing.
I know.
That was beautiful.
Be appalling. He wanted you to like everything you don't like in a greasy
Yeah, he was supposed to be the worst of everything because he is this devil character. He is an evil character that is able to seduce, but he gives them what they want most, which is not only attention from a man, attention period, and success in what they're doing. So he does that. He does that all. And I write in my book that this is almost like I'm looking at it. The in one respect, the Witches of Eastwick is a Pygmalion tale with the devil as the teacher, where the devil is able to teach them how to be. And so, and I write, Courtney, you got this is for you specifically. I wrote in one part, excuse me, the transactional exchange between woman and man, or witch and Satan, is quite literal here. The women are only empowered through sexual acquiescence. That the only way that they get their power is through that exchange with him. And he is horrible, but they're getting what they want. He is brilliant. I'm going to say, I have to always add that he is a brilliant actor in this. His character is phenomenal. It's the best part of the movie almost. But yeah, that's this exchange, and I think that's what Courtney was picking up on.
Sure.
But you missed the good parts, as you said.
But the thing is, like, so I just want to touch back. Carol Garcia said that's the whole idea. They don't need him, but that's the thing. That's what I did not get from this. Is that's what, to me, it seemed like they did. That's the only way that they got anything, and that's what I didn't like about it, was that that's what presented to me. And to be fair, my mother, who I was talking to about this movie, said to me, "You're gonna hate it," and I had to text her like halfway through. I was like, "You were right. This is painful. Like, I can't."
And you know what, that plays in if we go with that reading. And I know, Patty, you didn't read it that way, but if we go with that reading, it just falls right into the Malleus Maleficarum. It falls right into that trend, that traditional trend of what people think witches are. Witches are women who sell their soul, become these sexual creatures, sell their soul, have interactions with the devil, all kinds of different ones, and become powerful in that way. So this falls into another trope. So it's problematic for me in the very much the way that Courtney is speaking, but at the same time, I have an affinity for it because the hair and the actors, and it was a well done problematic film. How about that?
I can back that up. I can absolutely get on board with that. I honestly think, like, I can see what everybody sees in it. I really can. I get where you guys are all coming from. It does have redeeming qualities. It's just, in my personal taste, I will not watch it again because I can't. The the good things about it, the things that I did enjoy about it, do not outweigh the things that made it painful for me to watch.
I just, one last time, it's like they were women. I work with women every day. I work with men every day. Not good, not bad, just what it is. It's not who won in the end, where you give into, where you don't, what you need. I didn't see that they got it all through sex. I saw all the things that they go through. And I think when women watch that, I know, Courtney, and again, I think it might be a generational and age different things, because I lived through that. I was through that. I remember all that. And we won. We came through it. So it's the discovery. It's the battle of everything. And I wish I could explain it better what's in my little head, but I will.
No, you're
but
I get what you're saying.
Every day I work with people every day, and it's like, well, listen, I got to leave this. Yes, you need to leave this relationship. Yes, this. Take your power back. Take your power back. It's not where you gave it away to. It's taking your power back. And I do believe they did. I believe they got what they wanted. And I don't believe they got it from sex. I mean, yes, the sex was fun, and they got to play in a big thing, and that was what's weird too, because, again, it's not cute young Jack Nicholson. It's old, scary, weird ponytail Jack Nicholson. All of it. Life is messy. Life is messy. Relationships are messy. So, and I guess by reading too much into it, I just meant the good and evil of it. I just see the humanity of it.
Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of maybe what you're picking up on is what came out of what they kept from the John Updike book, which had a very strong feminist base that was meant to feed and be popular, and actually was a very popular book back in 1981 and 1982. So I think the stuff that they retained is what you're picking up on, that feminist thread that still is in there, even if it got buried under some other things.
Under porn.
I don't know about
No,
that.
I wish it would have been porn, honestly. If it had been porn, we would be having a much different conversation. I'd give it 2 thumbs up. I would have watched that.
Wands up. But nobody
Wands up,
responded.
sorry.
All you people. I love all your opinions, but none of you really gave us your opinion on one's up or one's down. Anyway, Jason, you were starting to talk.
Yes.
This is a yappy one. I love it.
I do think that one of the things I really like about the movie, though, is that they solved their problems in the end with magic. Right? They didn't pray to Jesus in the church. They didn't ask the crazy woman who was clucking them the entire time to help out. You know, they used a puppet, and they used it correctly, and it solved their issues. And they had to come together in the spirit of like fellowship, as someone said, I think in the chat, forming a coven. They had to do all of that in order to win at the end. I mean, that's a positive, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and it's a trio. We have to point that out too. And the trio of women in as a coven is so much so a trope. It's so old. I mean, we think Macbeth, we think Shakespeare, we think back to the Fates, to the mythology. So 3 women as a coven, that the writers pulled that and used that too. So yeah, there are some things. Yes. Yeah, and they did use magic.
Yeah.
I just have to say in the chat there, I see Lisa said, but as disappointing like the real Cheers bar, and I almost snort laughed over Jason talking because that is amazing.
What was that comment?
Yeah, I didn't hear that.
As disappointing, Lisa says in the comments, but as disappointing like the real Cheers bar, which I read it and I almost snort laughed over Jason because that's a very Massachusetts thing that people come to see these witch towns, or they come to see Salem, or they see whatever, but people will come see like the Cheers bar from Cheers and be like so disappointed, but like it's that feeling. Like I was excited to watch it, and it was like going to the real Cheers bar, and I guess that's just I don't know if that's just a Massachusetts thing, but it's disappointing. I was disappointed.
So there is a real Cheers bar?
Mm-hmm.
Who knew?
It's not anything like the show. You'd be disappointed.
Yeah, that's when I went to Plymouth Rock.
Oh God,
I was so disappointed.
Yeah,
I'm like, what?
Gosh.
This is a rock.
Well, it's right there in the name, Rock, Plymouth Rock. It doesn't say extraordinary Plymouth Rock. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to like get off topic. I just was like over here like snort laughing while Jason was talking, and I wasn't snort laughing at anything Jason was saying. It was the Cheers bar comment.
Courtney, you wouldn't be the first if you were snort laughing while I was talking.
I think your comment, Jason, was good. And I think this goes back to why Patty probably enjoyed the film more than some of the rest of us, is because they didn't turn that is one thing. They didn't give up everything, even though they sent him away through their own volition, through their own choices, and it was through magic. And they managed to figure out how to actually use magic, because up until that point they chose to use magic at the end, and so to vanquish him, whether it worked or not, and whether they were still trapped, we can have that discussion round and round. But they did do that, and that is cool. That's a good point.
Okay.
But see, you know what? I feel like I loved that scene, but I feel like I would have appreciated it more if I saw them learning that instead of just deciding to do it out of nowhere. And it felt like we spent more time on them eating cherries and making out with Jack Nicholson than we did with them, seeing them learn how to become witches, I guess, or like learn their powers. And I don't know anyone who just wakes up and knows how to make a voodoo doll.
They had a book. They
did have a book.
They had a book.
I saw that they had the book, but I don't even remember the book.
Girls. They're all creative girls.
I had the same I think Courtney and I are like on the same page with this, because I didn't feel like they were I think they fell into it. Like I said, it was girls' night, and they made a big wish, and maybe too much alcohol, and he all of a sudden he appears. All of a sudden the man appears, and I felt like the witchcraft really was like just a function of him being there until the end, and all of a sudden they're like fumbling, and they figure out how to do some stuff. At least they figured out that they had to do these things, how to do these things. So they did figure that out. They're not stupid women.
No.
And they did want to, and they did make the effort to do that. But I don't think this is I don't think this is the evolution of women becoming witches in the same way as She Will, the new movie, where she evolves into witchcraft because of a reason, because of oppression, whatever. Or it's not The Craft, where you start to learn magic and start to become a witch. That's not this movie. This is a totally different thing. You fall into it, and oh my goodness, here's a spell book. We got to get rid of the devil.
Right, because that's wasn't the point of it.
Yeah. So that begs the question: are they really witches, or did they just do a few spells and now they moved on? It's kind of like,
three
witching
regular
time.
girls.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was interesting. Our producer Rob snuck up there that it was a really good date movie of the day. I guess maybe that's when we're going to go into the porn part of Courtney. A great date movie. Oh yeah. Let's put on a robe.
The robes were so good. The robes were so good.
The robes were so good.
God.
And the little pajamas and running barefoot around those big floors. All those little details to me, I don't know why they stood out. And I watched it on a little tiny screen and they still stood out. And
I love all those details. I agree with you on that part. It just didn't do it for me.
Okay.
Yeah. Like a well-made movie with some problems.
At the beginning, now the statues of Cher's characters, to me, they kind of look like goddess figures, right?
They totally, the goddess of whatever that famous one is, the goddess of
the guy figure.
Willendorf.
Yeah, Venus of Willendorf. Yeah, and so like when the movie starts, I'm like, oh yeah, maybe this is like more like real witchcraft because I see that symbol that I'm really familiar with. So maybe one of them at least had, some knowledge of witchcraft and maybe read The Spiral Dance back in 1979, 1980. I mean, it feels like she was part of that goddess movement with a lot of witchcraft crossover.
Right. And look at it. And Michelle Pfeiffer was this gardener. Like she could have been like, when you know plants and know gardening, that's a little witchy. And Susan Sarandon with music, that's that whole right being art creative. They're perfect people to either take into witchcraft, even if they didn't know it. It wasn't like three bankers, or not that bankers can't be witches, just saying. But you know what I mean? These are creatives. They are.
Yeah, it's possible.
I wonder if part of my problem with it comes from working in Salem and doing a lot with Salem history, where this felt less like a witchcraft movie and more like women making deal with the devil movie. And that's not what witchcraft is. And that feels very dangerous to me in the sense of like how I connect with Salem history and the witch trials. So it could just be me, and I'll accept that it's just me who just feels that way. But like, that's what I got from it more than I got witchcraft movie. I got making deals with the devil. And it's,
and Courtney, I'm completely on board with that. I think that's more what it was, but that in witchcraft movie history, a lot of the movies are like that. It's still a witchcraft movie, but it's the type where, like I said, it's not like She Will or The Craft or Sabrina or a number of things where you have the embrace of some type of ritual witchcraft, ceremonial, whether it's good or bad, or the other, or biological witchcraft. Like I Married a Witch. You have the deal with the devil witchcraft, and there's another form, ceremonial. There's different forms, and this is one. And I don't feel like they weren't aiming for witchcraft. They just wanted a man and fell into it. And so that's what I completely agree with that take. I don't think that's wrong in my perspective anyway, when I look at it from a
and you're both
perspective.
Right. And that's what we love about this. This is the Witches Movie Coven. We want everybody, there's no right, there's no wrong, there's no judgment. It's not politics. This is art. Because I didn't see it as a witchcraft movie or a Sell to the Devil movie. I saw it as humanity and what we go through as humans and relationship movie. I saw it as that. Good, bad, and indifferent. But looking at the clock, we had to figure out what we want to talk about next. You guys, anybody in the chat room, we're loving you. If you have any ideas, you keep mentioning a couple new ones, Heather. That may be something we should look into. What do we want to do next week?
Well, there have been a bunch of new ones, but we're getting close to Halloween, so I don't know what we got to get something that's really close to. I mean, we already did Hocus Pocus, which is a Halloween movie, but I know there's one that I would like to personally talk about as close to Halloween as possible.
What's that one?
The Wizard of Oz.
Oh, yes. I'll talk about that every week. Can we talk about that
Yeah.
every week? Yes. Wizard of Oz. We're doing that
Every
by
week.
Halloween.
Yes.
Every week.
But yeah.
But everybody has to like it. No, they don't. No, they don't.
We still haven't done the deep dive into practical magic. I mean, I know we touched on it in the first episode, but we
I
haven't.
love that movie.
We haven't done
see?
like the hour talk.
Okay.
I think that might be a really good one. Practical magic.
I agree. If we're all four in agreement on that, practical magic next week. You guys, we want your opinion, so watch it this week if you can. I think you guys can find it. So practical magic, somebody's favorite. So that is good. Thank you, Bunny Girl. Okay, everybody, before we go, everybody tell everybody where they can find you, what you have doing. Let's start out with you, Courtney, this time.
All right. Well, I just really quick want to say this was such a fun discussion. Thank you guys so much. I love that we can have talks and all disagree, but see each other's point of view. So you can find me personally on social media at the Feems, THEFEEMS, right down there. Or you can watch me on Scared and Alone at www.scaredandalone.com or at Scared Alone Live on all the socials.
Perfect. Jason.
On Twitter, I'm at Pan Mankey. I think on Instagram, I'm also at Pan Mankey, which is my last name, but fronted by the great god Pan. I'm also the only Jason Mankey that practices witchcraft in the entire world. Yay for me.
How cool is that? Thank you. Okay, and Heather?
I am at, you can find all my socials and all of the links and everything at heathergreene.net. I interact mostly on Twitter, so you'll find me. So if you want to find my Twitter account, and you can communicate with me there, book information about my books, and I am also a journalist in the witchcraft and pagan world, so you can find links to some of my articles and see what I'm up to. I love to hear from everybody, and I love hearing about more witch movies that I have never seen, so please make sure you reach out to me for that reason.
Yes.
Give me something to watch.
Yes. So thank you. And I am Patty Negri. I am on all the social medias. You get to the real me. If you go to pattynegri.com, my website, you can get to my correct patty.negri Instagram, Patty Negri Psychic Meeting on Facebook. I'm Twitter. I'm TikTok. Like us, follow us. It makes a difference to us for some weird modern reason. So do like us, follow us, give us your opinions. We're thinking about doing a contest really soon. So sign up for my newsletter. And if anybody else has them, do it, because we want to do a contest with you guys. So I'm talking to Rob about that right away. So Patty Negri, Jason, Heather, Courtney, you guys, you make this. Thank you for coming in on this, giving us your opinion, giving us your wands up and your wands down. And come back next week, okay? Because we're the Witches Movie Coven. One more thing we all got to do. And you guys hopefully have been practicing. Here we go. 1,
Cackling time.
2, 3. Next, should we all bring our cats? I don't know.
Our margarita glasses.
Our margarita.
Next week's margarita glasses.
Next week,
All right.
practical magic, midnight margarita. So whether you guys are, everybody's having a virgin one or a regular one, midnight margaritas for next week's practical magic. So thank you, Matthew. Hi, Iconic. You guys are great. Come back next week. Find magic everywhere, you guys. Magic in movies, but mostly magic in your real life.
Mm-hmm.